Hey there, it's Mick with More Prana Gardens. Do you want to see what a North Texas permaculture garden looks like after a almost unprecedented heat wave, after a drought, and after a flood, all within 2 months? Because I'm about to show you. Let's go take a look at the gardens and see how they're doing after all the weather. So maybe you know, maybe you don't, but here in North Texas, the over 100-degree weather started in June. And today is Thursday the 25th. Last Wednesday was our last 100-degree day, and it was 107. We've been in the 80s or 90s since then. I don't think we're going to have another day over 100 this year. Who knows? But with all of that, we hardly had any rain. And then Sunday night, we had at least 7 inches. My rain gauge overflowed, so that was at least 7 inches. And then on Monday, we had another 1.5 inches. So we had a flood. Heat wave, drought, flood. The gardens are confused. I know y'all have met my strawberry bed before because you helped me put the strawberry bed to bed last fall and you helped me wake it up this spring. It's sad. I do have to admit to somewhat neglecting this bed when I got frustrated with it. So as you can see, a lot of it is overgrown with grass. I'm just going to come in with my garden knife and cut that grass down and mulch over it pretty soon. A lot of the strawberries plants have turned kind of yellow, and at first I thought it was just a magnesium deficiency, and eventually I realized that yeah, it is, but it's also the heat just sapping it. A lot of people in this area have been reporting that they lost their strawberries this year. People who have them in shade seem to have kept them better than people who had them in full sun. Mine are in shade in the afternoon, so, you know, this is what we're dealing with. In the early part of the spring, they were producing really well. They actually never stopped flowering over the winter, and they are still flowering. That was almost a sneeze. Halfway through the heat wave, I just started plucking the flowers. I was like, y'all don't need to deal with this. Y'all being the strawberries. Y'all don't need to deal with this. Put your energy into your roots and staying alive. I mulched them deeper, started plucking all the flowers, and I've just started letting the flowers remain in the last week since we dropped out of that 100-degree heat wave thing. We're going to let them see how they do. I am going to cut back that grass and remulch. I'll probably give them just a good heavy dose of compost tea and let them go with that and kind of just see what they do until it's time to put them to bed again. I am hoping to get more strawberries because I missed them over the summer. This passion vine is a purple possum passion vine that I bought a couple of years ago, put it in, did nothing, died, thought it was gone. That snowpocalypse stuff we had a couple of years ago, I didn't think it survived that. And then last summer we had like 2 little sprigs of it. And I was like, oh, aren't they cute? Whatever. And then I've cut this back 4 times. I've cut off a quarter of it 4 times. It's huge. But it is flowering and it is fruiting. So I looked it up this morning and this one will make purple fruits. I've never grown passion fruit before. I didn't know that they would fruit in our climate. I have to wait for those to turn purple and then fall off the plant, and then they'll be ready to eat. So that's very exciting. And it seems that keeping the tips off of it helps it make more flower buds. It feels like I'm getting more flower buds wherever I've been popping the ends off. I don't know. I'm doing it. It's fun, right? It keeps me entertained. It's also very aggressive, though. Check this out. So let's call this area passion vine proper, right? So we come across the sidewalk. Oh, look who this is. I didn't get it deep. One there. We have one over here coming up between the bricks. I'm not good at growing lavender. And then look at this one. Right up there out of the middle of the jigsaw. Here's one. There's 2. I've had them all the way over here. A good 10 feet. So it looks like I might spend some time this winter digging part of this out. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to dig part of it out, make sure that it can still grow here because it's beautiful and we want to keep it. Is it aggressive? Bug just flew in my ear. That was not nice. I don't appreciate that. Okay, so here, this is the kitchen garden expansion that we added this year. This part is brand new, and that part was a little bit added last year, but we really filled it in. As you can tell, the basil has not minded the heat at all, but the peppers did not appreciate it. Among all of my peppers, except for one jigsaw plant over there that we'll visit in a minute, but for the most part, they did not want to grow in the extreme heat, which peppers love heat, but no, they didn't. They barely leafed out and no flowers. But in the last week or two, they've started to fill out. I've started pruning them. I have a way that I pruned peppers last year that really helped them increase in plant volume and in production. So I've been doing that, and they're putting on flowers. So that is really exciting. I also have a couple of little peppers showing up. Yay for that. Might actually get some food out of this garden this year. It's been ridiculous, y'all. It's just... All right, let's look at the peppers. So here's that jigsaw pepper I was telling you about. I pruned about a quarter of this one out last night because it was so thick that I think it wasn't getting airflow, and this is the only pepper on it so far. This plant is just gorgeous. It did really well. There was another plant growing here last year, so this was already like fed, and it already had good soil, and it already had some roots decaying down in the ground. So it was just a happy spot, I think. But also check this out. Ta-da! Little baby habanero. This plant is starting to fill in. This is one I've been pruning heavily. And then the rest of the peppers are just kind of just starting to get there. The shishito was putting on fruit all summer, but I was getting little peppers. Oh, here's one. About this size, but fully ripe. They look like somebody took a standardized test and wore down their pencil eraser, and this is what we have left. This is supposed to be a shishito pepper. A shishito pepper. That's it. This is what they've been doing in the heat. We are starting to get eggplants. And then this regular jalapeno and this purple jalapeno have been producing throughout the summer, but the fruits are small. Like, they've been ripening this size. So I'm really hoping, and we should be able to, that I will get some full-sized peppers out of this garden before the frost comes. So my first frost is supposed to be around November 20th. Last year's first frost was actually this year. It was either the night of New Year's Day or the next night, but it was 18. We went from like 86 on Christmas, 18 on New Year's. So it was a really quick drop. But yeah, that was our first frost. And then the year before that, it was like December 20th. I know I can't count on that extra month, but maybe it'll happen. Maybe we'll get some time and some fruit. Also, this is my new favorite basil flower, cardinal basil. I cut off a huge one. It was like a big red ball of flower. It was just gorgeous. And the bees really like them. Right down here, we have a special little oddity of the garden. This is a Determinate tomato plant, meaning that it should put all of its fruit at one time. And it was in this cage, and at some point it fell over. Before the bad heat hit, it made me 2 tomatoes. And I was like, okay, cool. I got 2 tomatoes out of this plant, and now it's not going to produce because it's too hot. And it did stop, and when it fell over, I trimmed it, and I just pulled that cage off, and I was like, well, I'll lay it down and just see what happens. And it started making flowers again. It's Determinate. It's not supposed to, but now I'm just curious if it'll fruit. So I'm going to leave it there. I have rededicated the cage. I had a butterfly pea flower, a clitoria plant growing on the ground here, and I have now given it the cage. And then over here on the older side of the kitchen garden, we've just got massive lushness happening. All of the basils are really happy. This has always been a happy basil forest for me. We've got the catnip, we've got the garlic chives. The garlic chives had a kitten incident the other day. I will pop a picture in here for you, right there. Yeah, so that is Ruby. He is Bruno's bio brother. He decided to redecorate the garlic chives for us, which they're bouncing back. I was not worried about it because I have tried to kill garlic chives and it doesn't happen. It's fine. But yeah, all of this is doing really great. The one pepper plant in this bed is doing good. And everything just looks really nice and lush, except for the one white borage over there. And we'll circle back to that in a minute. This is a spot that I find myself sitting down and watching every morning and every evening and a lot of middays, to be honest. So this is a volunteer holy basil. We had 2 volunteers and we planted 1. It's huge. I cut a bunch of it out yesterday. I cut out some of the like older dead flowers that the bees aren't feeding on as much. And I just chop and dropped them. Now that I'm doing this, they're not, but this is often covered in bees. It gets honeybees and leafcutters and carpenter bees and bumblebees, sweat bees, different kinds, everything. It's very, very popular with the pollinators. And then right behind there, we have this ocean of watermelon plant. Can you see it? How huge it is? This is what happens when you spit a watermelon seed on the ground. We didn't plant this intentionally. So far, no watermelons, despite having hand pollinated several, but now that the heat is gone and the ground is starting to dry out from the flood, I'm hoping. This is something I'm really excited to show y'all. This is an example of using permaculture design and the idea that the problem is the solution. So the problem is that in the afternoon, the sun comes from over there, and this is the chicken coop, as I'm sure that you can hear now. The chickens get blasted with sun in the afternoon. Pardon me, the chickens got blasted with sun in the afternoon before I planted melons and cucumbers along the outside of their coop. This is a petite gris. There's another word at the end of that. It's a type of cantaloupe, or it's a cantaloupe-like melon. I have one right here. And those are the rounded leaves. And then over here, the pointy leaves are cucumbers, which I don't have any big ones to show you because I made a jar of pickles yesterday. I had intended this to take care of their heat for the worst part of the summer, and the worst part of the summer came early, so they had to endure a little bit without it. I mean, really, look at that. First of all, it's beautiful. And it brings the temperature down in there just by shading it, but also when the wind blows through here, it's getting cooled through all of these leaves. And then, you know, I'm being the nice chicken mama, and anything that grows inside the coop is theirs to eat. They haven't gotten a melon or a cucumber yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen before the end of the season. And of course, you know, sunflowers for the bees. Oh, like that little bee right there. Yes, chickens! And it's starting to wrap. And the chickens have their own little guardian. Oh, there she goes. They have their very own banana spider, golden orb weaver, zipper spider, writing spider. They have a lot of names. But we had a lot of wasps in the chicken coop. Tons, and we let them keep their spiders, and the spiders take care of their wasp problem, so no more problem. All right, I need to know if you've ever grown Malabar spinach. Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. This is it. This is Malabar. I've been growing it for the chickens because it is mucilaginous, so there's goo inside the leaves, and it helps them stay hydrated and cool, and they love the taste of these things. They beg for them. And then it makes these little berries, and when the berries get more mature, they turn black. Oh, here's one. Can't find my own finger. There we go. Here's one. And all these little berries will turn that dark color. They'll reseed themselves, but you can also use those as a dye, or when you feed them to the chickens and it drips blood red juice down their face, you get to call them murder chickens, and that's fun too. But recently I tasted this because people say it's like spinach but not bitter. And bitter is the thing that I can't deal with on spinach at all. Yeah. So I finally tried it and I like it. And so the other day I made some pasta and I was putting different stuff in there, you know. And so I cut up some of that and threw it in there just with my herbs, and it was good. I have a new food that grows very easily in the heat. That stuff thrives in the high heat. Get you some of that if you don't already have some. Here is the Fuji apple tree, which is still not produced because it is a full-size Fuji, and we probably have to wait another year if the Golden Delicious survives, but that's a whole nother story. We'll get there. This guild is doing pretty well. I do have a spot right here where everything dies. For the past 3 summers, everything I've planted there has died. I'm going to cover crop that this winter pretty heavily. I am probably also going to put some radish in there and let them die and decay underground so they open up the ground a little bit. Not sure what's going on right there. After I cut down the cover crop and the radishes, I will come back over that with compost. And we'll try again next year. Maybe it won't be a dead spot. Maybe it's an eternal dead spot. I don't know. I don't know what's up with it. You can see we've got a lot of zinnias. I planted 3 times that many. And the zinnias were all started in the bad soil. I'm going to put out another video about the bad soil incident, just to tell you what I've learned throughout the summer about the bad soil and what it could be and what it definitely is and all those things. That'll come out soon. And you can see where I've watered and where I haven't by the size of the mullins. Big mullein got water, not much water, more water, and so on. I have gotten some okras in the ground. They're starting to grow slowly. And then this is the holy basil that we actually planted here. I remember that in the last tour I talked to you about the corn, the 3 sisters that was going on here. It's not going on here anymore. I do know I told you that the corn, it was supposed to be 70 days, except one variety I had planted was supposed to be 85 days, and it actually produced corn in less than 60 days, but it was small and didn't do well. And I was thinking maybe I would replant, and I didn't. The heat just got so intense that I was like, I'm gonna let it go. The pumpkin that was in here, the pumpkin plant, got squash bugged or squash vine bored, and so did the watermelon. So they're gone. I did not replant the corn, but as you can see, the sweet potato that I left sitting on the ground last fall has done quite well for itself. It keeps growing up the fence and I keep cutting it down, which is great because it's feeding the compost. Yeah, I'm hoping to get a few sweet potatoes out of this bed this year. I also just finished off the compost and moved it into here to wait while I start a new set in the compost bin. Oh, and I see right here, I need to show you my favorite volunteer plant of the year. So the Volunteer of the Year award goes to Holy Basil, who volunteered in the compost bin. So I've just been working my compost, and you can see I'm just starting over in these 3 corners and ignoring this one because it's gorgeous. And I don't have the heart to take it out. It's doing so well. It's feeding pollinators. It's there. Congratulations on your Volunteer of the Year award, Holy Basil. You are quite lovely. Okay. I told you we were coming back to that white borage thing. See that? But it's not just that. Blue borage, tithonia, marshmallow, sunflower. All of these things were doing fine. They were doing fine in the heat. They would look a little bit wilty, like if it got over 100 in the middle of the day, they would look a little, but they were doing fine. We got the flood. They were fine. Flood was Sunday, Monday. Tuesday, they were fine. I came out here last night and they looked like this. And even this basil is doing it now. This is really heavy clay. And this is a bed that I'm just starting to work this year. I think what's going on here is that the clay is holding on to all that water and it's basically like just choking these plants. When the plant's roots are sitting in just water or just soil with no water, either way, if they're completely wet or completely dry, they can no longer pull up nutrients from the soil and from the ground. They can't breathe properly and they can't eat properly and they can't drink properly. So this happens. Oh, this basil's got it too. Right now, for this season, I can't do anything about this. The only perennial being affected by it is the marshmallow over there. And I do have 2 other marshmallow plants and I still have seeds. So if I need to replace that one, I can. Hopefully I won't need to. Everything else over here that is being affected is an annual. So if it dies off, it dies off. I'll replant next year. I have to replant next year anyways. What I'm going to do about this over the fall and winter, probably next spring, is, of course, I'll cover crop, to keep the ground covered and to get some nitrogen down into the ground. I think I looked up root depth of broccoli as how I got started on it, but Grow It, Build It has a chart. That website has a chart of different annual crops and their root depth. So now I know that some of the deeper roots are going to be cauliflower, beets, and carrots. Now, of course, your beetroot that you eat is only this deep, but the root of it can go down 10 feet. Probably not in heavy clay, but that tells me it's going to be an aggressive root. I will also probably put in a couple of mulleins over here because they put down a really deep taproot too. And there is a comfrey right above this garden, and there is a comfrey right at the bottom of this garden. So that's two spots that also have deep taproots. Chicken fight. I'll probably also put the radish over here to, like I talked about over there, to get down in the ground, let them die. I don't even like eating radishes. I know, pickle them, you'll like them. I'll try it, but really, my purpose in them is to open the ground. So all these things that I'm planning to plant that have deep roots, those roots will go down, open channels through the clay, and then when I cut those plants off at the ground, their roots will start to decay, and that pathway will stay open for a while. And the soil biology will come in and start to eat that and gain some nutrients, break it down. Those pathways will allow water to flow in, and hopefully, if I can get enough of them open, it will allow water to flow in, but not get stuck when we have a flood, like now. These plants have been perking up like first thing in the morning. They look better than they do right now. I don't have a lot of hope for the white borage, which is sad because it was just starting to flower. But I do have plans on how I'm going to recondition this bed. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you up to date, of course. Don't worry about that. All winter, all spring, you'll see what's going on and how it's developing. And I might actually, in the spring, I might intentionally flood this area just to see what it does. I'm kind of crazy like that. Now at the back of this sadness is where I stashed my mint plants that are in pots because they were getting dried out really quickly in the sun and being separated. So I've moved them apart a little bit, but they were all clumped up so that all of their walls were touching another potted mint plant. And that way they were evaporating less. And then as you can see, that is in the shade for a lot of the day. So they weren't getting beat with the sun as much. And you can tell they're really loving it. They're doing great over here. And I've just started to spread them out a little bit more so that some of the plants back here can get more light. It's really helped. Oh, I told y'all that this was supposed to be the summer of me learning about potted plants and container gardening. I've had to scrap that. It ended up being the summer of try to keep everything alive and add mulch to a different garden every other day. Not quite that frequently. I was adding mulch to gardens very, very frequently this summer, just trying to keep them from drying out too much. So the focus on container gardening summer is going to have to be next year, or it couldn't happen. It wasn't going to happen this year. There was too much other stuff that had to go on. Now we all know why a lot of you are here, right? I know, tomatoes. It's really what it's all about. I have gotten 5 whole slicer tomatoes, and they've been about this size. So, yay heat. But now that the temperatures are coming down, the plants are looking healthier. We're starting to set some more fruit. I've started to see, this little baby is new. We're starting to get a little bit. The plants are recovering. I know that I showed you just a couple of weeks ago, we were still in the hundreds, and I showed you how stressed and sick the plants were looking. I showed you this one in particular, and the way that its leaves are curling, and you can see that purple in them is a pretty bad thing. And I have given them banana peel tea. I have hit them with foliar spray. I've fallen off on the foliar spray because it's been so hot for me to take care of it. I need to get back on that. But look, okay, so here's the old grew in the heat wave growth, and then look what we've done since then. So much healthier, not showing deficiency, basically doing great. I showed you this plant and its low suckers that I'm letting it keep, and they're doing really well. They're full, they're lush, they're starting to flower. And then on the lower tomatoes, these are the silly tomato experiment. This one's wilting too. The Sweet 100s that I planted the tomatoes and worked from there. And they are still not producing. They made the one little fruit that I showed you once. That was an oblong one, and it fell off in the heat. Now that it's cooler, now that it's into tomato weather, they are putting on more flowers. Everything on this wall is starting to flower and is looking so much healthier. Last year, I got most of my tomatoes during the summer, and then I still got a good crop in the fall and winter. But also last year by this time of year, this is an Amish paste. My Amish paste was up the fence, filled in a whole area like this, and touching the ground on the other side of the fence. So it was 12 feet, and it's just nothing right now. So I'm hoping that the plants will fill out and produce quite a bit and not just completely fizzle on me. Yeah, it's been rough. This year I was supposed to learn how to water bath can my tomatoes, and I haven't had any tomatoes to water bath can. So that's out the window. Maybe I'll learn that over the fall and winter, but we'll see what happens. It's gonna be up to Mother Nature at this point. We're just waiting on Mama. Hey, so if you are enjoying this video, could I ask you please to click that thumb? And if you're not subscribed, would you please subscribe? And if you are subscribed, thank you. I hate doing this part. If you would like to contribute to the secret project, my budget for the winter on it is about $1,000. I am not asking you to pay for all of that. I'm asking you to buy me a coffee. I have a link to my buy me a coffee down in the description. A coffee is $5. You can buy me one coffee, you can buy me a few coffees, or you can subscribe. And that would cost you $3 a month. And for that, you get my thanks. Because I don't have the stamina and the spoons to produce anything more for you quite yet. But I would really appreciate it if you would help out in any one of those ways. Like, subscribe, share, or buy me a coffee. All right, thanks. This is my spot. This is where I come to have coffee in the mornings. And I have talked to you about this Oak Tree Guild, and I still owe you the How to Make a Permaculture Guild video. I'm working on it. There's a lot of planning that goes into making that video. And I had to replant some things over here to get it ready for you. I'm about to flip the camera around and show you why I love sitting in this spot. I've created a microclimate back here. It is cooler here in the summer. It is a lot cooler right here than where I was standing with the tomatoes a second ago. It's an amazing difference. And it is beautiful, and it is filled in, and we've got perennials and annuals. We've got just basically everything going on back here. It's really, really amazing. I do have to be careful when I'm filming in this area, because this is where the secret project is housed for now. And as you know, I am still waiting for Mama Nature to take over and get this project going, and I'm not showing you what it is until that happens. So I have to be very careful with the camera so I don't accidentally show you. But let's take a look around the Oak Tree Guild. So this is my view if I look straight forward while I'm having coffee. I've got I told you I had another marshmallow. This is the other marshmallow plant. It makes these flowers that have that pretty purple in the center. And if you ever catch honeybees eating over here, the little pollen sacs on their legs, instead of being yellow like they normally are, they're this color purple. They have these little purple pollen sacs on their legs. It is precious. Here we have a Teutonia. This pokes me in the face a lot while I'm sitting down having coffee, but it makes big, beautiful flowers. Hummingbirds like these, bumblebees. I usually end up with a praying mantis living in my Teutonia, although I haven't found one in here yet this year. This is not the perennial Teutonia. This is an annual. I think the perennials have redder flowers, but I don't know. This one's gorgeous. If I could find the perennial, I would love to have it. But in the meantime, I love this. This is a Kajari melon, and there's one down there which did not get pollinated properly, as you can see, but that's all right. We'll let it go. Sweet potatoes, more of them. This one is not as full because I planted this from slips instead of just putting like a single sweet potato on the ground. And then you can see we have another Malabar. And you know I like to put little dishes of water in my gardens, so here's another one. I've added this one in the last couple of months, and there's a little terracotta pot there for little small things to go hide in when they need to. We've got some basil over here. I think this is purple ruffles. And then I've recently added this pineapple mint back here. So it'll complement I forgot to show you, there's a lemon balm between the marshmallow and the Teutonia. And then there's another Teutonia over here that's just getting started. We've got some sunflowers in the guild. That's a loofah that I'm not expecting much of because it hasn't started flowering yet. But this is where I come to relax. Oh, and there's a turmeric and a dwarf comfrey. Dwarf comfreys like to live in the shade, So this one should do well here. I have the root pointing this way, so it should run in that direction. And this is a carrot top. I just planted the top of a carrot. And it makes these little flowers that attract parasitic wasps, which attack caterpillars. This is a caterpillar. I mean, there's a caterpillar in there. That's a caterpillar. So these should help us get rid of these. All right, the Golden Delicious Guild. So let's talk about this tree. Yeah, it did pretty well until like mid-July, and then it was... So you can scrape, and if it's green, then the tree is still alive. That's a little bit brown. I'm gonna come down. Oh, sorry, little jumping spider. Yeah, okay. So the tree is still alive, which is excellent news. I'm not doing that too often. I don't want to damage the tree. I've been giving it water from this 5-gallon bucket. This is rainwater. This was empty before the storms, and then I'm just throwing comfrey in here. And then every few days, I'm giving that to the tree. So it's getting 5 gallons-ish at a time. Most of the stuff is doing well over here. The zinnias didn't do what I wanted them to. A lot of them didn't make it. This bed, I put down a foot of wood chip 2 years ago? About 2 years ago. And then I planted on it, or not on it, below the wood chip, last year and this year. And then I added the straw this summer. Here's another little marshmallow plant. This one's just a baby, and it had a watermelon volunteer to grow in its pot, so it's with that, and another moringa tree. Oh, I didn't show you my moringas. The comfreys are doing okay over here. This one was cut back a couple of weeks ago and fed into that bucket. This one was not. So this is what they grow in like a couple of weeks. And of course we know that some of you are here for the pineberries. When we planted the pineberries, they're down here, we talked about that they don't fruit in the first year. They should fruit next year. I was really nervous about them, but I heard that they do better with conditions than strawberries do, and that they're more prolific than strawberries. So in the spring they were in the shade and they were doing fine, but I felt like they could use more sun, so I moved them down here. So we have the big pot and then the smaller one, and they're both sitting in trays. And they've done really well. So they're not so much growing into the center of the pot, but they are still alive. There's a little bit of dry, but not as bad as the strawberries did. And then they are coming down. They're sending a lot of runners, which, I mean, they're looking rough, but, you know, they've... Ooh, sorry. Something poked me in the back. But they are starting to root, which is really nice. Once I'm sure that some of these have rooted, I'll come and clip the runners and let the ones in the pot focus their energy here and let these start to get established on their own. And then the same thing is going on here. Now this one I clipped the runners more aggressively for most of the year, and I've only just started letting it run out. So it's got a little bit more inside the pot. But you can see that the pineberries are doing significantly better than the strawberries. If you remember, pineberries they're white strawberries, but they have a little bit of a pineapple taste with the strawberry taste. I haven't eaten them yet, waiting on these to grow. But yeah, they're doing well, and I'm really impressed with how they've handled the heat, especially being in a pot. All right, so that's how we did with the heat and the drought and the flood. Oh, what an absolute season of everything that can go wrong. From the bad soil to the heat and drought and flood, just, it's been wild. If you're still here, I feel okay being honest with you and telling you that there were so many points in this summer that I was just like, F this garden. And then I remembered that I have viewers who want to see my garden. And I have viewers who need to be encouraged not to give up, because we can fight through this and we can get it done. I might have let my peppers die if it were not for y'all. And I might have let some tomato plants go if it were not for y'all. I guess what I'm really saying is thank you. Thank you for giving me a reason to keep my plants alive through this just insane mess of a summer. Wow. Here's to a better winter. I don't have a drink, but cheers, clink, something. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you have a great day. Later, y'all.